this is going to be the odd paladin. It's straight out aggressive. It makes dudes every turn. You push your hero power, it puts 2 silver hand recruits on, and then it just keeps plowing into your face. The interesting thing for me is Westwith has gone with the Malygos Druid, which is the Twig of the World Tree refill deck. So you play Malygos, you break your Twig of the World Tree at the same time. It ramps you back up to 10 free mana, and then you just pound your opponent's face with a load of spells to do a single turn kill.
And I've just noticed as well is the fact that Westwith has 2 plagues. Now, if it gets to that turn eventually, he's going to have a bit of a rough time. Considering what he has, because obviously he doesn't know, but it seems like now I feel like he would have to end it as fast as he can, because when it gets to that point and he's already got 2 plays in hand, it's going to be quite tough for him. Yeah,
I mean, Plague is just the perfect counter for aggressive decks like this. For 6 mana, you get to mirror their board with 1/5s with Taunt, and even if your dudes have been buffed with the level up, there's still only 3 attack. It still takes you 2 turns to chunk through each of those Taunt minions with each of your dudes. So usually what happens is if the Paladin gets a super quick start, then you're likely to overwhelm the Druid before it can get any sort of defense on board. If, however, there's a couple of spreading plagues in hand like there is, it may be enough to just hold the Paladin at arm's length until you can work your own lethal into play.
And it's same with Dan. He's trying to look away, but can't look away from now, mate. But it seems like now we'll be patient, but it's going to be very difficult for him, because if you take a look, obviously it's going to take a bit of time, but I swear with Westwith, it's going to be hard, because he's going to have to... Obviously, I know it's one of his aggro decks where a lot of it can be countered, but I feel like now Dan is already quite far ahead, but it depends exactly what happens in these next couple of turns.
Yeah, I mean, one of the really good things for him is that Purifies Maul. It gives all of his minions Divine Shield, so stuff like Swipe doesn't insta-kill them. It allows them to stick around longer, and you can get buffs down with stuff like the Fungal Mancer, the Raid Leader, and eventually the Level Up, which can it effectively acts as burn in itself. You change all of your 1-attack guys into 3-attack guys, and you can just plow into face possibly faster than they can defend.
I think the main thing as well is the fact that with Westwith's Divine Favor, at least when he runs out of resources, at least he can make some kind of comeback.
Yeah.
And at least try and keep the tempo going, because without that, I wouldn't say it was GG, but it would be extremely tough for him to continue the tempo and just keep it up. But you can see now it's already down to 4 HP. So I think he's just hoping that he can at least get to that turn 6.
Yeah. The reason that Dan's hanging off the edge of the screen and gyrating wildly is his hand is just full of big bombs, but he's got nothing other than those 2 spreading plagues and potentially that 1 swipe that he can do to affect this board. And it's allowing Westwith to just run away, building all of these small minions and buffing them. And as you can see, look, even this swipe, look at him shake his head.
He is absolutely feeling it at the moment. And it's a shame because, like, for example, that Wild Growth, he could have done without in his Mulligan.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah.
Didn't have the best cards, obviously, because right now he could have at least survived, but now he could only be on 4 HP if he does move it.
Yeah,
I think he is feeling it now, though.
Westwith's kind of considering holding onto that weapon to potentially help him get rid of a Taunt minion if it gets played. And speaking of Taunt minions, here we go. Into the Spreading Plague. Dan's still furious. The Arcane Tyrant reduced there because the spell is enough to proc its special.
I think he was literally furious within the 60-second mark, but I can't blame him. And now look, after all that, and he's still got... Dan's only got 6 HP.
He does, yeah.
He's managed to get at least a lot more resources to keep the tempo going. But the problem is, I'm not sure if that second plague will be able to hold him back enough.
Well, this is kind of a real inflection point for this game. If these Spreading Plagues hold, and if he can get that second one down, then I think possibly Dan can take the game, simply because Westwith doesn't have much in the way of burn. It has no way of dealing direct damage to face, usually in an odd Paladin deck. It relies entirely on minion pressure and stuff like the level up to increase attack from minions. So even on 6 health, Dan is still safe as long as he's got enough taunt there to keep those minions away from him. A second swipe. And I mean, it doesn't feel good using swipes to get rid of 1-mana minions, but it's what he's got to do.
I think he's worried as well, because with Dan, yes, sure, he's got a second plague, but he's still got a couple of minions on the board already, so it's not going to be that cost-effective.
Yeah.
And you can see with Westwith now,
Ooh.
it's all to play for, but yeah, it's again, he did get a little bit too late, but he's got the Vine Cleaver anyway.
Possibly, yeah. He's going to be generating 2 more Silver Hand recruits. Next turn, he can use his hero power and the Vine Cleaver to generate more. And then that level up's going to create a board with 5, 6, 3/3s. And maybe he can start to get through, especially since that... Wow. Especially since that second plague has come down just for a single minion. Dan there, knowing that if he doesn't put that up, then potentially... a single buff for that 1/1 and the weapon is enough to take him out of the game.
Yeah, it's not looking too good, and it's a shame because he had to put that down just to survive, but...
Okay, this is interesting. He's using the level up now, so the... Okay, so he's using the level up and the Blessing of Might to give the Silver Hand recruit enough to get through, leaving Dan on just 2 health.
Yeah, as you can see, he's not having the time of his life at the moment. It's not exactly going to be a walk in the park for him, but with only 2 HP now, there's only so much he can do, and it seems like now he knows he could potentially be just delaying the inevitable. But even though he does have Alexstrasza to give him 15 HP back, next turn he knows it's just too much. So
yeah, I mean, there's lethal on board there with the weapon. There's nothing he could do. If he'd maybe found a way of getting rid of a couple of minions without having to play the Plague, he could have put the Plague down when the board was bigger, giving himself more effective health for those Silver Hands to go through. But he just felt like with the Vine Cleaver on board, he needed a way to stop any damage going to face, and I can't blame him for playing it there. It was a really clunky hand, and I kind of think he did the best he could with it.
yeah, it was one of those situations where he had to either use it then or try and save it for later, but it's extremely risky. We know what this Paladin's like. We know that they can change it in a matter of an instance. And I was a little bit skeptical at first because I thought we would try and get a few more minions on the board first before we used it. But it seems like then you could tell from Dan's reaction as well. I did say at the start that he was quite a vocal player. We all know what he's like. And you could just tell from then, even after this, was it the 60-second mark? He wasn't having a great time.
He's a lovely lad, and like I say, he plays with his heart on his sleeve. You instantly know what he's thinking. There's no artifice about him. He lets you know what he's feeling from his face.
Yeah, he's just one of those passionate players, isn't he? And
very much, yeah.
You know, I think it's quite a mental game as well. But I think he felt like halfway through that game, he was literally just delaying the inevitable then, and which is fair enough. These things can happen when you play against that kind of Paladin with Malagos Druid. It just, you know, it's just one of those things, especially if you haven't got a good curve or a good Mulligan to at least stop it. Yes, sure, fair enough. He had 2 plagues, but problem was Westwith already had a couple of minions on the, Dan had a couple of minions on the board already. So there wasn't really too much he could have done.
Yeah. And looks like Dan's going with the Malagos Druid again. And, so it's Inner Fire Combo Priest from Westwith. I've been playing this myself today. It's fantastic. You get, like, turn 7, 44 minions, and really there's not a lot your opponent can do about that if there's not a taunt on board. Yeah,
I've not had a good time with that either. I've not seen it much on ladder because I think at one stage I kind of recognised it because I was playing Quest Priest a few weeks back, and then when I first saw this Inner Fire Priest come out, I was just like, yeah, a deck change absolutely needed, and it can be one of those...
okay, we're not friends anymore.
No?
No, if you're playing Quest Priest, we're not friends.
Why? Because of the fact that I make every match last for at least an hour.
I may have to pretend I just don't know you at this point.
I don't play it anymore, if that helps.
No one plays it anymore. So that's a good thing.
Oh, no. It's been a while. I've not played it for at least a couple of weeks now. As soon as that NFR Priest came, I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to do it. And it takes so long for every match. It would either last, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes, or I'll be just sitting there for at least an hour, just, you know, tapping my fingers.
So we're Westwith here with the Elemental on board already. If you look at his hand, he's got a load of combo pieces. And again, Dan's not having much luck. He's got the coin, he's got Nourish to ramp, but early turns he's got nothing to do. Of course, he does have 37 health relative at this point, so still sitting relatively pretty. But like I say, if you're facing down minions with 30-odd attack, and even if you have an entire wall of taunts, the Priest is known for running more than one silence effect. So Elixir of Hope. Okay.
And this is the problem he's going to have as well, since it's been numerous times where I try, it doesn't matter how many minions you have on the board or anything like that. If you've got a minion that large and you've got no silence, you've got no taunts, then it's going to be a real struggle for him. But again, you know, he does have Plague, but we know with this Unified Priest, they don't really put too many minions on the board. So I'd say it's a little bit ineffective, and of course, with the silence, it just complements that.
I'm also going to draw your attention to a tech card that Westwith has in there, that Mossy Horror. That gets rid of anything on board that has 2 or fewer attack. And unless I'm very much mistaken, every single Plague minion has 2 or fewer attack. So that's just a way of blowing up any taunts that Dan manages to get down for that. Oh, look, head in his hands already. So Westwith, just realizing there's very little Dan's putting up to stop him, just goes all in. It's a 14-14 already.
I do feel sorry for Dan because, you know, this matchup is extremely bad for him. It's like you mentioned before, even if he does put the Plagues down, again, they're all 1-5s.
Yeah, this is exactly what we're going to see here.
Now.
Yeah, so he's gone for the Death Knight. There's 2 1-5 taunts there, which theoretically should act as a buttress, but look, Mossy Horror is just going to get rid of them. And that's another 18 damage to face.
But again, he does have...
Wow.
He does have a second Plague. So again, he can delay things a bit more, but the next question is, how long can he delay this for? Will he try and stop it any way he can? Of course, he should be putting his Plague down.
And Westwith doesn't seem too worried, though.
No, not at all. He's in quite comfortably, but again, it's going to be a tough one for Dan.
Yeah, so the Spellstone coming down is going to get rid of that Drake. Okay, so we North Shy? Yes, we do. We trade, we heal, we see if we can get another tech card like the Silence that's going to get rid of the taunts. With both the Plagues gone, Westwith knows he's fine to just start building a wider board. And against a Druid, you've got a wider board, which, you know, they only really have tools like Swipe to deal with. And you've got a single enormous minion, which they need point removal. And we can see that Dan doesn't have Naturalize. He's used one Jasper Spellstone already. How does he deal with this 14-13?
This is going to be the story, and it's from... I think many players do have this issue, but again, Dan, he can survive a little bit. He can use Alexstrasza to heal himself a little bit. He can armor up for 12. He can hero power as well to add on, but it's going to be very tough. I think if he delays it enough, he may have a chance, but it depends what he has to actually hold that 14-13 back.
Yeah, so he, like you said, he's going to have to go for the armor. He's going for the +1 attack. Okay.
I'm curious to see what he does now, because, again...
He's going to use all of his spells and both his minions just to plow into this 14 attack minion. That's really sensible, takes it down to 4 damage on board, but leaves him only, after the trades, on... It's going to be 6 health.
And even though he has got rid of part of the problem, he will still have another problem to face potentially. So,
yeah,
it's going to be quite... this is a very difficult position because, again, he's got no Plagues. There is multiple ways he can heal, but I think he knows that either he'll delay it or he'll just have to let him take this one.
Yeah, so this is going to get rid of the armor, which is important because if he had played the Alexstrasza and the armor would be there, the armor would still remain after Alexstrasza had set health to 15, so it would have been a greater relative health total than 15.
I bring life.
And that's his only option. Okay, and that might be, well, all she wrote. Yeah, the doubling of the Mossy Horror's health, the changing attack. You have a 14-14 again. And there's the OTK. That's exactly what I was talking about. You just need the one turn when there's no opposition. You need those combo pieces, and bam. It's knocked Dan clear off camera.
Yeah, yeah. You saw that just then. He again, you know, not having the best of times, Dan. You know, we love him. We know how passionate he is, but I think he just felt again that there was nothing he could do to actually stop that. He had a good Westwith had a good curve. Dan did a good job actually delaying as much as he could, but he knew full well that, you know, he had to do something drastic, but there's not really much he could have could have done with the cards he had in hand. Yeah,
he's not been very fortunate with his draw. At the same time, a load of the top tier pros are playing Malygos Druid at the very, very highest level, and all of them rate it as a deck. So I feel like it should be doing better. I mean, it's not going to do better when you draw Malygos UI in your opening hand. But yeah, it might be his downfall. We've got just this Warlock to come up against all three of Westwith's decks. Dan's is just going to have to do the amazing reverse sweep, clear out everything that Westwith has.
And you're going to question now what he can do as well, especially with the Warlock, because it could be Q-Block, it could be anything in this case, but I feel like now with Dan, he's going to have to do something special here, but he will be going for the Warlock himself, but, you know, what can he do against this matchup?
Well, if I'm sure that Dan's is playing Shudderwock, and Westwith is playing the even Warlock. Now he actually chose to throw away the silence in his. Dan chose to throw away the silence spell in his opening hand, which is interesting, because even Warlock can play the Twilight Drake, which is the minion that starts out as a 4/1 and then gains health for the card you have in hand. Of course, if you silence it and do 1 damage to it, it goes down to 1 health. You do 1 damage to it, and 1 mana clears off a 4 mana minion. So I would have liked to have seen him keep it. Fortunately, he's drawn back into it. Maybe this is the turnaround for his luck.
I would hope so. It's just a matter of case of what he's going to get in the next few turns. But again, I'm glad he has changed, because I'm not too sure. Would you think this Malygos Druid, which we've been playing the last 2 games, would have actually done anything against this lock?
This Warlock's really interesting because it's kind of counterintuitive. You almost don't want to damage it. So Malygos Druid, I think, would have been fine because it tends to go for the late game single turn kill. Shudderwock is very similar. It has that sort of long build up, getting all its combo pieces down, and then it goes infinite with the life drinker heals and damage and putting more Shudderwocks back in your hand. So I think either of them would have stood a decent chance against this even lock. The big thing with not damaging it is you don't want to get it below 15 health early game, because that enables the Hooked Reaver to come down as a 7/7 taunt instead of a 4/4, which is a big tempo swing. If you've played a lot of Hearthstone, you'll know that 4 mana 7/7s are pretty good.
Yes, it's not something you want to actually put him down to, which is understandable. When people put me down to 15 HP, I'm like, oh, well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
But, but yes, with this, obviously we know sometimes you may get the Shudderwock playing halfway through the game. Sometimes it's right to the very end. It all depends on that card draw, and which is also the reason why Westwith wants to be on that 15 HP.
Yeah. Dan's slightly unlucky there. He drew an elemental, but it was a Glacial Shard. Would have probably hoped for Grumble for next turn. Westwith's Homunculus has damaged him. So he himself, with his own minions and, of course, tapping, is going to be trying to get himself down low enough to play an activated Hook Reaver. We can see he doesn't have one in hand yet, but, of course, Dan won't know that. So he's going to be wary of putting too much damage into Westwith's face.
Well, Dan's not making too many hand movements and too much gymnastics at the moment. So I think, you know, he knows it's okay so far, but you just know when he gets a little bit tilted, a little bit,
yeah,
which is understandable. But, you know, he knows he can come back from this now that he has his Shadowwork Shaman, but it depends, again, obviously, on what the other decks are.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's looking fine for Dans at this point. He's got the Life Drinker, which is a little bit of heal if he needs it. He does have the Healing Rain, which is the big heal that Shadowwalk runs. He's got the Glacial Shard, which can keep this 4-attack Shroom Brewer at bay. And having played the Shroom Brewer, Dans feels confident enough to put the Life Drinker in because it's still effectively Westwood gaining 1 health overall. Chose to play the MCT early, not worried about stealing any of Westwood's minions. Not expecting a big board, potentially. So we've got the Volcano and the Acolyte in hand, which is a great combo later on, because every time one of the Volcano bits of ash, I guess, hits the Acolyte, he's going to be drawing a card into hand. He's not going to be playing that now. He's going to be overloaded next turn. He's used that Lightning Storm. But as you can see, Westwith just doesn't have anything on board, and Dans isn't even worried about going face. He's just sitting there, chilling. He's waiting for his combo pieces to turn up. Westwith needs something big, and as we can see, something big has just arrived.
And I think this is great as well, because Dan, has got a Hex if something like the Mana Giant comes out.
Yep.
He's got the Volcano as well, which at least, it's got the card which at least delay it enough to potentially have that lethal. But, and again as well, you've got Earthshock as well, at least if there's, of course, a minion which needs to get past, that's perfectly fine. And also he's got a heal to at least, again, keep delaying it enough to make that Shadowwalk play. And of course he's got the Acolytes, so if he does run out, fair enough. But I don't think he'll get too much of that Acolyte out.
Okay, that's a great pickup for Dan. The Saronite Chain Gang comes down, puts more taunts in the way of anything Westwith is going to play, but it's also a combo piece. It's the bit that's going to be generating more Shadowwalks as the battle cry effects go off. Interestingly for me, Westwith has teched in that that Skulking Geist, which has blown up the Earthshock. Now, if we see a Twilight Drake in Westwith's deck come down, we don't have that option of the insta-kill for the 1-mana spell. Instead, he's going for the Mountain Giant, just putting down something chunky, something scary that Dans has to deal with. We've got this 4-attack minion. The Mountain Giant's probably going to be hexed.
I assume so, yeah, because I think he's in a position now where he kind of has to now. He knows he's in a bad spot. It's going to be 12 damage a turn, but he goes with the Volcano anyway, which is also a great play due to the fact that he can get as many cards out of the Acolyte as he can. Yeah, and again, look, he's got another additional heal to keep him going.
Yeah, he knows it's going to end up with a clean board. We can see Westwith down on 14. If he had a Hooked Reaver in hand, that would be another minion that could come down that was potentially really scary. If he had 2 Hooked Reavers, 14 attack could have come down on that board, and there's only 1 Hex. Unfortunately, there isn't. Westwith just doesn't have them in hand. Next turn, we can see the Lich King, which is probably going to earn a Hex, but
it's earned it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've got the other Saronite Chain Gang in Dan's hand. He can throw that down, put more of a wall between this board that Westwith's starting to build. We can see Westwith has the Hellfire in hand, though, which would get rid of both of these Saronite Chain Gang taunts, and would clear off this Mana Tide as well. So that's actually probably what we're going to see. The Hellfire comes down. Yep. We're going to see 6 more damage into face. That's going to leave Dan on 10 health, but we know he has both. Okay, we're going to go for the Silence instead.
I think he's just worried with the fact that his health would be too low, and to the fact that it could speed up the process with the lethal. But again, with the life drinks as well, it will only take up 6 HP if he used them both. So, but he's already used 1 already. I'm not too sure if he's actually used a second one yet.
No, we've only seen the 1 life drinker. Dan going for draw. That turn was very interesting to me. The silence, the spell to get rid and heal. I can't think that Westwith was worried about the lethal. Like you say, he's only seen the 1 life drinker, so I don't know why the Hellfire wasn't played. Here's Grumble, though. That's fantastic for Dan. Pulls one of those Saronites back to hand. He's got all the time in the world now with this heal. Down comes another Saronite. These are going to be more pieces of the Shudderwock. And finally an activated Hook Reaver shows up.
It took a while, but we got a Reaver in the end, considering he was on 12 HP for quite a while now, so at least he can get one down for himself. Now, this is where Dan's got a little bit more of a problem. But again, as you can see, he can still heal, he can still hex.
Yeah, Dan's pretty much sitting pretty at this point. I'm not sure what there is that Westwith has left in the tank that can get anywhere near touching Dan. As you can see, he's still got Hagatha to play if he needs it. He's got the extra heal. Like you say, he's got both hexes in hand now by Lich King, I would guess. And with the Shudderwock, which we know has at least one life drinker. Okay, we're just going to go straight for Shudderwock. Going for Shudderwock and Hope.
I think he just doesn't want to take the risk. He just want to go straight in, but...
Okay,
gets
wow.
the Lich King anyway out of all 4 cards as well, but...
Wow. Okay, so that was what I would like to call a disgusting turn.
Yeah, that was quite unlucky, I'm not going to lie. And
so
now it's only 1 mana, great.
Yeah. The first battle cry that went off, or almost the first battle cry that went off, was Grumbles. So that can spell disaster if you're the Shadowwalk player, but it didn't matter because he had enough mana in hand to play Grumble on the board, which then included Westwith's Lich King, which had been stolen. And Westwith forced now to go with this Death Knight just to put a threatening board down, but we're at the point now where Shadowwalk's just going to go infinite. He can play that over and over and over again, healing for 3/6 every time, generating more 6/6s, and here we go.
And it's going to be the start as well. I just cannot believe he actually took the Lich King of all the cards as well. That was pretty unlucky for him, to be fair.
Class. It was the swing. Maybe that's going to stabilize him mentally as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we know what Dan's like, and I think you can tell that he's actually a bit happy, a bit chuffed, thinking to myself, well, you know what, I've had those bad mulligans in those previous 2 games. I deserve something to come out of it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how big a pro player you are, how professionally you play. When you go 2 down, it's stressful. It's, you know, you feel like there's the weight of expectation on top of you. You've got a bunch of decks that you now need to win with each of, and they only have to win 1. So getting this first win on the board is definitely going to help settle his nerves. As you can see, even his body language is more relaxed. He's moving less. We can just see that one eye is definitely less stressed. There's no wrinkles on his forehead. Oh.
No, you don't want wrinkles on your forehead because I've got about 2 of those, and right. I know exactly what it's like. So, Dan, I know how you feel. Don't worry.
The entire board's frozen there. Can play Shadowwalks forever, each at 1 mana. Each of them is going to be doing 3 to Westwith's face. This is the point at which the Shadowwalk is just infinite, and there is nothing that Westwith can do. He's going to let the game play out, though. Why not?
Yeah, make him enjoy that win. But it's like I said before with Hearthstone as well. It's very, very difficult to get that reverse sweep sometimes. But it depends, again, on what your opponents are playing. But it seems like now he's feeling a bit better about himself. And at least that way, he's got 1 game taken from Westwith now.
Sure.
He can at least, again, like you said, feel a bit better about himself, feel like how he can go into things. And now he can go to the next game feeling a bit more comfortable and, I would say, hopefully, for his sake, a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, not just that. He's going into those potentially 2 further games, knowing exactly what Westwith is playing in terms of this Even Warlock, knowing a good deal of the content of the deck itself. And that's golden to him. That's intelligence that he has around what he needs to mulligan for, what he needs to keep back as resources. We may see things like, I mean, now that the Shadowwalk's gone, we won't see things like Hex held, but potentially, if he'd known beforehand, he would have held the Hex, anticipating the Mountain Giant come down. So Dan's now has that. He can use it, and the mental lift he would have got from picking that game up to start getting back into the game. He's got like a single claw into the game now.
Only just a little bit closer now.
Yeah, and we're talking about Dan's a lot because you know, he's a very animated player, but Westwith seems to be taking this in his stride. He didn't seem too unhappy by that loss.
Yeah, he's actually, I'd say, recuperated probably from his mentality issues. Like, well, obviously those first 2 games weren't the greatest because, yeah, you know, he didn't have a great time. The Mulligan wasn't great. He didn't have a good curve either. But now, I think, especially with that play he made, actually using the Volcano to at least get as many cards out of that Acolyte as possible, was the game changer. He could have easily hexed that Giant, and also you got to remember that Westwith didn't get any Reavers until those, I think, probably like turn 12, 13, something like that. It's like halfway through the game, and that was very, very late as well, which is, you know, again, that was a shame, but, you know, still had a few cards to play with, but obviously, yeah, it wasn't enough for him to at least crack on from there.
Okay, so it looks like Dan's playing... Okay, the Henge Clan Thug is... Yeah, this is going to be a Miracle variant. It looks like a very aggressive Miracle variant. Look at him G'd up there now.
He loves it because he's got that fuck.
Yeah. Westwith is taking it all in his stride, though. He's cool, he's calm, he knows he's got 2 games under his belt. He just has to get the one. He knows that there's only 2 decks he's got to beat. And I like to see this this stubborn Gastropod in Westwith's opening hand as well. And
on top of that, the Hellfire to at least keep him going. But obviously, as you can see, will do 3 damage to all. But I'd be curious to know how he's going to take... Will he actually put down the Thug?
Yeah, I mean, Thug is one of the strongest cards early game for the Rogue. If you can't coin it out, then it is your turn 3 play, basically. Unless, this is going to sound stupid, unless there's something more board-specific that you can do. It's just... Yeah, there you go. It's just a fantastic turn 3 play. And having daggered up last turn, he can now attack. And all of a sudden, it's not a 3-3, it's a 4-4.
And obviously, again, that Thug turn 3. Can't really complain. Oh, yeah. He's loving it because he knows that Mountain Giants come straight down. But on top of that as well, he's got 2 Twilight Drakes. And he can taunt them. And he's got Hellfire. So, but he's got, you know, he can recover a little bit of health as well.
Okay, so this is interesting. What are we going to... You're going for the prep sap. Okay, so that Mountain Giant's going back to hand. The Faldore Striders put a load of spiders into... Spooders. Into Dan's deck.
Spooders, I love
Spooders. Ooh! And that's a big burn.
Yeah, especially that Reaver as well. But that's the one thing I was going to say. I would be curious to know exactly which card he's going to overdraw. But I think that's one of the last cards he wanted. But
yeah, at least it wasn't the Death Knight.
That's right, but it gets the Giant down anyway. Gets to taunt it, so again delays things further. But he's already on 19 HP, but he's still got both those Twilight Drakes.
Yeah. What I was going to say about the Spooders, I'm going to have to call them Spooders.
You know what, I'm going to call it Spooders all the time now, Navy, you said that. That's literally stuck in my brain, and I don't think I'm going to get it out.
It's the memeiest of Hearthstone memes, Spooders. They're all 4 attack, 4 health, so Hellfire isn't enough to clear them. And if you can keep bouncing the Faldore Strider back to your hand, we've not seen any bounce effects like Shadow Step from Dan's yet, but if you can keep bouncing it back to hand, you can fill your deck chock full of these 4/4s, and it just means that every turn there's potentially a big board coming out. Like, they can't attack instantly, they don't have charge, but there's still something that Westwith is going to have to deal with.
Well, I think this is the right play. At least he keeps that Thug alive.
Yeah.
And at least keep it going, because obviously at any moment you don't keep that tempo going with Rogue, that's when it can slowly go downhill. But, you know, I think that was the correct play. Only on 12 HP left, but the question is, what does Westwith have to do to keep this game going? But again, silencing that Thug, got slightly more ball control, but...
I'm going to go back to what I was saying last game, which about the not damaging the Warlock. And yet we've seen Dan's do exactly that. He's ploughing into it. That's for 2 reasons. Partly because the Rogue is such a quick deck. It is really heavily tempo focused. But also he's seen that Hook Reaver burn. So he knows that there's only one left in the deck, and it's not been played so far. Even though the 15 health activation has been down for 2 or 3 turns. So he feels comfortable enough just pushing face. Because that 7/7 taunt isn't available.
And of course, he drew Cold Blood as well, so he's got the recipes, you know, he's got the ingredients to get the thought, just a matter of when, but...
And everything's activated as well. He can SI, he can Eviscerate, he can Cold Blood. He can't do all of them this turn, but he likes the Cold Blood, and I don't blame him. Oh, yes. There we go.
I knew
Shades
I was
on.
going to
There's
say.
the lethal. Lethal with the weapon. Even Westwith is smiling at that, though.
Well, he had to. I think he knew that even with that Reaver, I think he still would have struggled even then. Yeah. But, you know, we've seen a smile on Dan's face. He's loving life at the moment.
It's good. It's good, and we've got a decider game now, which is fantastic. We've got the Westwith surging ahead, and then we've got this resurgence. Yeah, that's right. We've got the resurgence from.
I'm bad at words as well, so don't worry about it.
Good. We've got the resurgence from Dan. He's managed to get his second claw into the game, into the match, and now it's the Druid, which he struggled with, versus that even lock. That's going to be interesting.
Now, will this Druid be the fawn of the entire match, though? Like, will he lose again?
Yeah.
It's that lot, because we've seen it earlier. You did say before that his Malagos Druid would do better against this matchup compared to the previous ones, but, and it's like you mentioned before, that a lot of the higher tier players are starting to use this deck. And do you think it's actually good enough to take Westwith from that reverse sweep?
Yeah, I think the Malagos Druid, even though we've seen it draw, I'm going to say like trash. It drew like trash.
It did, yeah.
For the first couple of games. It's still a super strong deck. The Twig into the Malagos, the Malagos into the Twig, into the spells to face, can just wipe out pretty much anything. And like we were saying, the even Warlock, you know, it tends to wait late game. It needs the activations on those Hook Reavers, so it's going to be tapping and tapping and tapping. And the more turns it takes to do that, the more opportunity there is for the Malagos Druid to get all its combo pieces together. And
he's screwing his face a little bit. I think he's wasn't really too impressed considering what he has at the moment. But this is what we're going to find out. We're going to find out now if Dan will actually make this reverse sweep, considering those first two games, it didn't have the best time in his life. Yeah, it's looking really good for Dan off this mulligan. Westwith has a bunch of cheap junk in hand. And if we look at Dan's, for once, he has some cheap junk in hand. Yeah, compared to the last two games, or the first two games of the match, it wasn't like that at all. It was getting 2 Plagues and Malagos all in his mulligan. But yeah, it's different now, because he's actually able to not keep up the tempo, but he can actually make something from this. But you saw from this first mulligan, I think his second mulligan is much better, but he was still... just can't make him happy. Yeah, at least he has turn 2, 3, 4 plays now. Westwith is going to be kind of gutted. He's got those 2 gastropods. He's got the 2 homunculi. But he's got no big threats. And it's typically big threats you want to start throwing at the Druid because they don't carry much in the way of point removal. Dan's very happy there. He's boosted himself to 39 health. He's managed to ramp up that Spellstone. But Westwith lucks into the Mountain Giant straight away, rips it off the top, comes down, and Dan's faces his first big threat. You took the words right out of my mouth there. When I saw that Giant get drawn, I was like, you know, he's sitting there thinking to himself, at least I can actually do something from the start from this. You know, he really, you know, didn't look really too good in that aspect, but as you can see, Dan's got all the AoE on the table. He's obviously got Innovate. Yeah, so you can definitely hold him back for a while. With the Nourish into next turn, he's got the Innovate, so potentially he could just double swipe this Giant away. He does have the option of the Spellstone and the Wrath, but he's still on 32 health, despite the fact that the Giant's now had enough time to go face at least once. He could even Innovate out the Lich King and just say, fine, look, trade your 8/8 into my 8/8. I don't care, I'm getting a Death Knight card out of it. I think it's a tough decision as well. Of course, Westwith can take that out, but, you know, using double swipe, I don't... Oh, he's not using double swipe. Okay. No, he's going for like a hybrid of the 2 things I identified. He's gone for the Spellstone and one of the swipes because the Spellstone wasn't powered enough. That was my fault. I actually thought that Spellstone was 2 damage, but of course it was 4. Yep. Yeah. So here comes the Homunculi, which is powering up Westwith's Spellstone. Still not able to get that Hook Reaver activated this turn. And at least Westwith now's got that Black Knight to take out the Lich King if he does put it down eventually. I assume he will. Yeah, it's 8. The Lich King is green. You can't not. You can't not. It's 8 mana. You've got a Lich King in hand. What's the play? Oh, I guess it's Lich King. I'm not just going to throw Wraths all over the place and swipes. No, of course not. Does get one of his own, but of course, He is only on turn 7, thanks to his...
I expect a reaction from Dan here. Yeah, there we go. Headset off. He's not happy.
Sitting far away from the camera as possible, not enjoying himself at all, but, you know, it's not too late yet.
Yeah, that's a terrible card for him to get off the Lich King, though. The Army of the Dead is one of the worst for Malagos Druid. It doesn't run that much in the way of minions. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I take that all back.
And Dan, loving life again. He's gone from... Yeah, okay, I'm not going to lie. Dan, like, literally, from the space of 30 seconds, was sitting there far back in the chain going, yeah, this is it for me. Yeah, I'm not feeling this at all, yeah. Gets Malagos and was like, yeah, shades on, you know, I'm just going to play about a little bit. Yeah, I'm all good.